The soft girl rebellion, why your trauma doesn't get the last word. Welcome to soft girl era, the sacred pause Black women have been waiting for. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce like sweet softness whispered in French. And today I want to share something with you that honestly changed the way I think about pain, healing, and what it means to finally put down the cape. I recently had the honor of sitting down with Kimah, known as the R.A.G.E coach, a faith based trauma and rage coach who is literally transforming lives by helping women and youth break cycles of anger, unforgiveness, shame, and unresolved trauma. Kimah doesn't just talk about healing, they have lived it. And their work is rooted in this powerful truth. Trauma may explain your pain, but it does not have to define your future. Kimah's mission is redemptive, restorative, and revolutionary. They are helping people invite God into the places they've tried to hide or survive. And in doing so, they are changing families, communities, and entire industries. What Kimah is doing is not just coaching, it is liberation work. Let me say that again because some of you need to hear it twice. Trauma may explain your pain, but it does not have to define your future. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, LeAnne, I'm fine. I've got it together. I'm handling it. And maybe you are. Maybe you're holding down a full time job, raising kids, leading a team, serving at church, showing up for everybody. But here's the question Kimah asked me that I want to ask you. How much of that is thriving and how much of it is just surviving? Because here's what we don't talk about enough. A lot of us have been in survival mode for so long that we don't even know what peace feels like anymore. We've been carrying rejection, abandonment, grief, and unmet expectations, what Kimah calls rage. And we've been managing it. We've been smiling through it. We've been praying through it, but we haven't been healing through it. And that's the difference. Akima shared with me that healing is not passive. It's not something that just happens to you while you're busy being strong. Healing is a partnership with God. It's surrendering your pain to him. Yes, but it's also engaging real tools. Therapy, coaching, journaling, community support, mindset shifts that help you break cycles you didn't even know you were stuck in. God is able to heal, but we must be willing to participate in the process. And I want to be really honest with you. For a long time, I thought asking for help meant I wasn't faithful enough. I thought if I just prayed harder, read my Bible more, served more, that the pain would go away. But what I learned and what Kima confirmed in our conversation is that God often heals us through people, through practices, through the very tools He's placed in front of us that we've been too proud or too scared to pick up. So let me share three things from my conversation with Kima that I believe every single one of us needs to remember. And I'm going to be real with you. If you're driving, you might want to pull over and write this down. If you're folding laundry, pause the dryer. This is that important. First, your trauma is real, but it is not your identity. Your experiences of rejection, abandonment, grief, or unmet expectations can explain why you hurt, why you rage, why certain patterns keep showing up in your life, but they do not have to dictate your future. Healing begins when you stop pretending you're fine and start telling the truth about your pain, especially in the presence of God. I want you to think about that for a second. How many of us have been taught that being a strong woman means never admitting you're struggling? How many of us have been told that faith means you don't cry, you don't complain, you don't ask for help? And how many of us are exhausted because of it? Let me tell you about Sarah Jakes Roberts. If you don't know her story, Sarah is the daughter of Bishop T.D. Jakes. She became a mother at 14, and she walked through deep shame, public scrutiny, personal brokenness, all under a global church spotlight. She has shared openly how her pain led to depression, isolation, and a sense that her life was permanently ruined. But here's what happened: Sarah stopped hiding from God in her shame. She stopped running from her story. She did the inner work to confront it instead of managing it. She returned to a personal, honest relationship with God rather than hiding from Him. She used biblical principles to rebuild her identity and purpose. She chose to speak openly about her journey so other women would know they are not alone. And today, she is a pastor, an author, and the leader of the Woman Evolve movement, reaching millions of women worldwide. Her platform helps women break cycles of shame and step into their God given identity. She leads conferences and digital ministries that center healing, restoration, and purpose for women. She is known for her transparent, vulnerable preaching style that normalizes healing journeys. Her story shows us that early trauma, public failure, and deep shame do not disqualify you from God's purpose. In fact, they can become the very testimony that sets others free. Sarah's healing didn't happen because she pretended everything was fine. It happened because she told the truth. And that's what Kimah is inviting us to do. Tell the truth about what hurts. Tell the truth about what you're carrying. Tell the truth about the rage you've been swallowing for years because your trauma is real, but it is not your identity. Second, healing requires both spiritual surrender and practical work. Now, I know some of you are already thinking, LeAnne, I've been praying, I've been fasting, I've been believing God. And I'm not saying stop, I'm saying add to it, because freedom is not passive, it's a partnership. Kimah introduced me to the work of Dr. Thema Bryant, a Black woman psychologist, ordained minister, and current president of the American Psychological Association. Dr. Bryant's work centers trauma recovery, particularly for Black communities, and she integrates faith, mental health, and cultural healing practices. Dr. Bryant grew up in the Black church and later trained as a trauma psychologist. And she has spoken about the pain Black communities carry and the need to address that pain instead of spiritualizing it away. Her calling emerged from seeing the gap between spiritual support and psychological care, and choosing to stand in that gap as a healer who looks like the communities she serves. She developed trauma informed, culturally competent approaches that explicitly name racism and oppression as sources of trauma. She teaches practices such as journaling, movement, and spiritual disciplines as part of a holistic healing process. She creates podcasts, sermons, and community resources that normalize therapy and healing for Black Christians. She trains clinicians to understand Black trauma and integrate compassion, cultural context, and respect for faith traditions. As APA president, Dr. Bryant has amplified conversations about mental health in Black communities and the necessity of culturally grounded trauma care. Her public work has helped many Black women and men see that their rage, exhaustion, and grief are valid and treatable rather than moral failures or spiritual weaknesses. And here's what she models for us: therapy, spiritual practices, and cultural wisdom are not competing options. They are complementary tools God can use to bring transformation. So if you've been thinking about seeing a therapist, but you're worried about what people at church will say, let me give you permission right now. Go. If you've been thinking about starting a journaling practice, but you don't know where to begin, Kimah recommends something called morning pages. 3 pages every morning, where you honestly track your thoughts, your rage, your grief, your expectations before God. If you've been thinking about having one honest conversation with a trusted friend or mentor about what you're truly carrying, instead of saying, I'm fine, while you're going, breaking inside, do it this week because healing requires both spiritual surrender and practical work. And God is not offended by your need for help. He's the one who created the helpers. Third, your healing is not just for you, it's for others connected to your life. This is the part that got me because I used to think healing was selfish. I used to think I don't have time to focus on me. I've got people depending on me. But Kimma flipped that script. When you choose transformation over survival, your story becomes a roadmap for someone else. What once was your rage, rejection, abandonment, grief, and expectation can become your ministry, your message, and your mission. Your freedom can change your family, your community, and even your industry. Let me tell you about a movement called Healers Who Look Like Me. It's an initiative that highlights Black women clinicians who provide trauma informed care to Black communities. Many of these therapists entered the field after walking through their own trauma and noticing the lack of healers who shared their cultural and spiritual background. These women grew up in environments where trauma was normalized or minimized, whether through family dysfunction, racism, or church cultures that discouraged emotional honesty. Their decision to become therapists emerged from their own healing journeys. They confronted the truth of their pain, worked with therapists, and discovered freedom. And that freedom evolved into a calling to help others process rage, grief, and abandonment with both professional skill and spiritual sensitivity. They share their personal journeys of healing and how they learn to love their inner child and confront hidden pain instead of numbing it. They use culturally relevant methods, storytelling, community support, and faith sensitive care, alongside evidence based trauma therapies like EMDR and journaling techniques. They normalize conversations about rage, exhaustion, and grief, encouraging Black women to seek help instead of carrying everything alone. Today, clients report feeling seen and validated by healers who look like them, which increases trust and engagement in the healing process. Black women are learning practical tools like morning pages, journaling, self compassion practices, and setting boundaries, all while maintaining their faith commitments. And as more Black women heal, they show up differently in their families, workplaces, and ministries, breaking generational patterns of silence and survival. These women have created therapy practices and programs specifically tailored to Black women in Black communities. They have increased representation of Black women in mental health fields, offering faith friendly and culturally aware care. They use podcasts, workshops, and online communities to reach Black professionals and entrepreneurs who might not traditionally seek therapy. This is what happens when you stop managing your pain in silence and start engaging a healing process on purpose. You don't just change your life, you change the lives of everyone connected to you. Your daughter watches you set boundaries and learns she doesn't have to say yes to everything. Your son watches you go to therapy and learns that asking for help is strength, not weakness. Your coworker watches you protect your peace and realizes she's allowed to do the same. Your healing is not just for you, it's for the generations coming behind you who are watching to see if freedom is really possible. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to make one courageous, practical commitment this week. Just one. Stop managing your pain in silence and start engaging a healing process on purpose. That could look like scheduling a session with a trauma informed, culturally competent therapist or coach who understands Black experiences and, if possible, respects your faith. It could look like beginning a 12-week morning pages journaling practice to honestly track your thoughts, rage, grief, and expectations before God, 3 pages at a time. It could look like sharing one honest conversation with a trusted friend or mentor about what you're truly carrying instead of saying, I'm fine while you're breaking inside. The challenge is simple. Choose one concrete step this week that moves you from survival mode into intentional healing. Do not wait for a crisis. Start while God is gently inviting you into freedom. Because here's the truth: trauma may explain your pain, but it does not have to define your future. Healing is possible when you courageously face the truth, invite God into your deepest wounds, and choose transformation instead of just survival. And what tried to break you, that can become the very thing God uses to bring healing to others. I want to leave you with this. Right now, someone is watching you. They're watching how you handle pressure. They're watching how you respond to pain. They're watching to see if you're going to keep pretending or if you're going to start healing. And they're waiting to see if it's possible, waiting to see if transformation is real, waiting to see if freedom is something they can actually have or if it's just something they sing about in church. You have the power to show them. Not by being perfect, not by having it all together, but by being honest, by doing the work, by choosing healing over hiding. Your story is not over. Your pain is not the end. Your trauma does not get the last word. God does. And He's saying, come, bring me your rage. Bring me your grief. Bring me your rejection. Bring me your abandonment. Bring me everything you've been carrying alone and let me turn it into something beautiful. Let me turn it into freedom. Let me turn it into a testimony that sets someone else free. So stop surviving, start healing, and watch what God does with the pieces you thought were too broken to use. Because your soft girl era, it starts the moment you decide that your past is not the final word over your future. Now go, choose one step, take it this week, and let the healing begin.